So welcome here to another of our healing conversations with Dr. Weiss. And today we have Deb and Jason, who have done an amazing shift or the lifestyle change, and we'll hear a lot. And guess what? We also have their coach. So, yeah, Dr. Weiss, do you want to kick away with why we do this healing conversation?
Yes. Well, we do these healing conversations because I think they're an inspiration to people who are searching for better health. We have a lot of people coming to our website in all kinds of stages of awakening or, realization. A lot of them for the first time are just wondering if changing their living habits can help them. They may not know that diabetes can be reversed. They may have been taking Lipitor or blood pressure pills for decades. They may not know or understand that they can get off these drugs. And people like you show them they can. And so that's why we are so pleased that you've decided to do this today with us, because we think it's a public service to everyone.
Thanks.
So now I just wanted to introduce, so Asha, of course, is our lifestyle clinical director at Ethos Primary Care. And Wendy was your personal coach during your journey for all of this, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yay, Wendy.
Okay. So just for those who are watching who are sort of not aware of how we are structured here, we're a little bit different than a regular doctor's office, primary care doctor. I am the doctor and I do meet with the patients, and I'll diagnose you, tell you why this is happening, how you can fix it, but you cannot take me home with you in your pocket. You can't. I have to be here on the farm. So you can take your coach home with you in your pocket. So not literally, but the coach is always there with you. And I'm here too. If you have an urgent matter or any difficulty, you can always call me up. But it's really the coach that sort of guides you on your path, keeps you going, shows you how to do these things, because they're not easy to do. It's not easy to fix your habits and change them in order to reverse disease and prevent the major things that cause death and chronic illness in the United States. So I think maybe that's where I would like to start our conversation with you.
Sure.
Now, paint us a picture of your state of health before you first set foot, and how did you first set foot in here? Because I've known you for a few years beforehand. You've always looked pretty healthy to me, and I'm sure you thought you were healthy. So why don't you start from there, guys, and tell us about yourself.
I guess I have to start, right?
Because it's his fault.
I brought us there. So yes, Dr. Weiss, we've known each other for about 3 or 4 years. Met on your farm. We both have one thing in common. Well, we have many things in common, but what I knew initially was you were growing grain and we were growing grain, and we were both working with River Valley Community Grains. And the guys from River Valley Community Grains invited me to your farm, and we met personally. And Deborah and I, having eaten organic foods since, Deborah since she was a little girl, me since the early 90s, we sought out, when we moved to this area back in 2020, a place to go and buy great produce. And that was Ethos Farm. So
now, I don't mean to interrupt you, but sometimes I got to. I just want people to appreciate who you are and what you've done, not just from a health perspective.
Sure.
But you've also helped to heal the earth.
Yes.
In these past few years. So just when you say you came here in 2020, you came here to do what? Into our area.
Deborah and I came here to change our life and lead a more sustainable life. We've been living in Montclair for 30 years or close to it, raised our kids. You want to tell them the idea?
We stumbled upon this amazing piece of property. It was not our intention to start farming. We just wanted to live in a beautiful place. And we found this piece of land that needed some love. It was a GMO cornfield, genetically modified, Roundup ready, and it was kind of a desert landscape agriculturally. But the perimeter of the field is 43 acres total of beautiful woodlands and wetlands that had all sorts of things going on. But agriculturally, we turned this desert of a landscape into a organically practiced, wonderful grain growing field with cover crops. We farm regeneratively as best we can. Sometimes we have to till the field to deal with the weeds that we typically hand pull. But we have a homestead that's on the house, and the area around it in a deer fence is 2.5 acres, and it's permaculture, which is permanent agriculture. It's food growing, a sustainable ecosystem for critters and humans alike. They say if you build it, they will come. We have built it, and the critters have come.
And
and then go back to the grains, yeah.
To build
But I just want to let everyone who's listening to this know that you both are too demure. This is a garden of Eden. I knew this road where you live, and it was just a monocropped, desolate place of one organism, just corn as far as you can see. Today you go there, it's a breathing, living place of all kinds of just beautiful native organisms, plants, animals, and I am in awe of what you've done.
Well, thank you. And you guys were part of the inspiration, the farming that you did. At the time I first met you, Dr. Weiss, when I think it was Rodale that was doing something, and they were showing, we were walking on the farm, and we were looking at the outskirts of your farm at the GMO cornfield that lies next to you, and looking at yours. At that time, Deborah and I had not yet completely decided what we were going to farm. We knew we were going to turn this place into regenerative agriculture. We knew we were going to do permaculture. And that was part of our inspiration. And the amazing thing for the people watching this video to know, and the segue is, what's happened to this land in 3.5 years is nothing short of miraculous. But I'm not sure it's more miraculous than what's happened to Deborah and I in the last 12 months, right? So, and it's the same process. If you stop doing harm, you allow the natural systems to heal and start doing well. And that's exactly the journey that we've been on. So,
Beautifully put.
Back to your original question. I had been seeing a doctor. I won't name their practice, but they're they're now a corporate practice. They were one of the primary care practices that got bought up into a very large practice. And we had been seeing our doctor for over a decade, and she's was absolutely lovely. But the practice changed such that it was the standard in and out in 10 or 15 minutes. They weren't looking to prevent disease. They were treating issues as they came up. You know, you have a cold or you have a flu, they'll tell you to do something. My weight and cholesterol were a little bit higher than I like, certainly. I've been a trained athlete most of my life. And after COVID, I had gained some weight, My cholesterol was up at around 235. And the moment when I knew I needed to change positions and look for something different was when I went to this physician. And she said, well, you exercise so much and you don't really have any other markers. I'm not worried. She happens to be maybe 50 to 75 pounds overweight, doesn't exercise a lot. And so I'm thinking to myself, if that's the way she cares for herself, how do I know that she's doing best by me? I came to the farm one day, you were there, you were actually planting flowers out in front of the
Man does not eat by vegetables alone.
That's right.
Always have to have flowers.
Anyway, I asked you whether or not you'd be comfortable being my physician because I wanted to get that cholesterol down in my mind. I didn't think 235 was acceptable. And I wanted an opinion of my health. Very honestly, I thought you were going to say, oh, you're in great health. And I thought it was going to be, you know, like, I don't have to do very much. I was kind of cocky. I mean, I could still bike ride, run, you know, I'm very active. We run a farm. And yet there was something in my head. And so you said yes. You did ask me, or I said to you, I don't think I'll stop drinking wine and I will not give up olive oil. And you said, I will show you the science and you decide. And boy, did you show me the science. And when we got my blood work back, boy, was that a depressing moment because I thought I was super, super healthy. And yet there were some real.
So what was it in the blood work that gave you doubt?
It was the, hold on.
He has data.
I have data.
That's data.
So the things that I was concerned about was obviously my overall cholesterol. The ratio was good, but my overall cholesterol was high. We discovered that my AST, a measure of liver enzymes, was also high. My omega-6, omega-3 ratio was off. It was not optimal for longevity. And my, what is it? I'm sorry, I will get there. Lipoprotein A, which is a major cardiac marker. Mine was very elevated, and that was very concerning. And I think there was one other thing. My oxidized LDL was higher than we wanted it. And so, you know, there were things that are all markers of potential chronic disease down the road. And what I loved was, for the first time in my life, I was looking at my health from the standpoint of how do I prevent as opposed to how do I just fix what's already broken. And I will be very honest, Deborah and I were a bit wary of a whole food plant-based diet. And as we used to come to the farm and hear people talk about it, it seemed extreme.
Now, I'm very interested in this. By the way, everyone who's listening, I'm particularly interested in this segment of, I think, what you're about to tell us, because we're always trying to figure out how can we get to people who are eating omnivorously or, you know, standard American diet or even vegetarian, because I remember I used to be one of those people.
Yeah.
And I remember when I introduced this to my father because he had pancreas cancer, I thought it was nuts.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Like, why? I would never choose to eat like this unless someone forced me at the end of a gun. So,
my world.
Yeah.
Because I never, ever, ever thought that I would say, I'm a whole food plant-based eater, SOS free. Never in my life.
No.
And when he came home and he said, I think I'm going to try this, my reaction was dread. It was dread.
Yeah. It was dread. Why? Why? What was going on in you that gave you this feeling of impending doom?
So there were a few things going on. First of all, I would have to make changes and be accountable. I didn't want to be. It was a big responsibility to think about the things that I would put in my mouth as opposed to just eating things that I enjoyed. And for my life, I always ate things that were good for me as well as things that I enjoyed. I mean, I too thought that I was relatively healthy. I knew that I could lose some weight. I knew that my cholesterol was high. But I was like, I'm in my 50s. I'm good. I have other things that are great. My ratio of my cholesterol was really good. No, it wasn't. You know, I would convince myself because I didn't want to give up baked goods, basically, and things that, and I love to bake. So it was twofold. I would have to give up eating the things and baking things. So
then
it was hard.
can you paint us the path forward? How did you get from feeling like that? And I think this is why people are challenged by this, because we all feel like you did.
Yeah.
How did you go from feeling like that to the way you feel today about these same foods? And maybe if you can first before you describe the path, tell me about how you feel about eating only plants that are whole with no added oil, salt, or sugar. Do you feel dread?
Not anymore. No.
What do you feel?
I
What
feel
do you feel
clean.
inside?
I feel clean
And joy.
and joyful.
Yeah.
Joyful?
Yes.
Yep.
It's
Why?
remarkable.
Well, let me just say this, and Deb will talk to you about how she, Deb will talk to you about how she went from dread to joy in her own words.
Yeah.
Deborah and I were serious foodies. I mean, we lived for food. When we moved out here, the first thing we did, before we figured out where there were hospitals, before we figured out where the bank,
the police station,
screw
that.
No.
We wanted to know where we
CSA.
could buy eggs, where there was a good CSA, where there was a good purveyor of free range meats, where there were good farm to table restaurants. And Deb and I have been that way all over the world. When we would travel to different countries with our family, we would seek out the local markets and we would cook our own meals, always thinking we were healthy. But
that's why I understand why you were filled with dread now, because you weren't just making and eating baked goods.
No,
you were at a high level. This was of primary importance in your life. You engineered your life around these things because they were so important to you, and now they were being threatened.
Yeah.
And we also, I mean, the other component there is that we raised our children to be total foodies, and now we had totally abandoned them in some way.
That's been the hardest part.
And what were and are your children's reaction when they found this out, that you were going to do this and go whole food plant-based?
It was hard. It was really, they were mourning.
They were shocked.
They were shocked and they were mourning and they were angry, I think, and sad. And not just our children, but the rest of our family, our extended family, and our friends too. And so, but I think over the year, they've become, as we have, more comfortable with this new way of us.
Yeah, and they see that it goes back to that word joy. They see the joy that we have. First of all, food has never tasted better to me in my life. I was a trained sommelier with a very, very, very sensitive palate, and I taste things better now that I stopped eating all the crap we're eating. I taste things that I never tasted before. I can eat.
Now hold it a second.
Yeah.
When you say crap, What do you mean? Like fast food?
Really? No, never.
What, because people don't understand.
Okay.
What do you mean by crap? Because you're speaking now from the vantage point of a whole food plant-based person.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Things that are loaded with fat, sugar, salt, that are so intense on your palate that you don't realize it's happening, but it's blocking out all of the nuance of flavor in these plants, that there's a whole rainbow of tastes that you simply cannot taste if you have added, if you fried it up in olive oil, dosed it with salt, and then added some sugar to make a nice sauce, which would taste absolutely delicious. But once you stop doing that, the underlying vegetables are absolutely delicious in a way that you can't fathom. You can't. This is the kind of thing that made me say it's extreme. When I heard people talk like I just did, and I apologize for that in a way, right? It was off-putting to me. It didn't make sense. What are you talking about? I buy the best extra virgin olive oil in the world. I use only free-range, organic, locally raised meats. The cheeses that I have are artisanal. They're made by people that I know. How can you call this stuff crap? It's the best food on earth. That's the way I felt. And so hearing other people say exactly what I just did unwittingly was off-putting and made it seem like it was like, this is some kind of cult. This is, and so that's why I think Deb had a sense of dread. But the path forward was science and education.
And accountability.
Yeah. The process that you put us through of giving us the best science to read, of showing us videos that explain the why behind eating this way, piece by piece, you peel back the onion and you start to understand.
Plus, with the doctor visits and the coaching visits, we could see our progress. We see the weight go down. We see the cholesterol go down. We see the good things in our life go up.
Yeah. So, when you look back, I am 26 or 28 pounds lighter than I was, and I don't think anyone would have thought I was overweight. My cholesterol went down to, at its high, it was 235. It is 153, right? With no medicine. I have more energy. Today, my day started with a 6-mile run. Then I was fortunate enough to have a workout with my strength trainer. That was all before 9 a.m., by the way. Then Deborah and I worked on our farm until right before this meeting, which was 4 hours or so. And I'm fine. If I tried to do that a year ago, I would say I have to cancel the meeting. I have to take a nap.
Can you tell us what happened to your visceral fat? Can you explain to our audience who doesn't know what visceral fat is, what happened with that? And well, we're going to get to Deb, because I want you to give us, after Jason finishes, I want you to give us all of your accomplishments. Okay. Now, I don't think we mentioned this. The reason why we're holding this healing conversation, it's been 1 year. This is the 1-year anniversary of you actually walking in here.
Exactly.
So these accomplishments, and for many of them, a lot of them, it didn't take 1 year to happen, like the visceral fat. And you can explain what that is. It happened quickly.
I didn't even know what visceral fat was. And I'm glad you mentioned it, Dr. Weiss, because this was the one that really scared me when I was in your office. Visceral fat is fat. It comes from the word viscera, and the viscera is the lining in your body that inside that contains all of the organs. So you're not a sloppy mess in there, right? You need something to hold the insides of you together. Well, within that viscera, and it's like if you ever cut a chicken breast, and you have that white thin lining that holds the muscle together, that's exactly what is inside of us, holding all of our organs together. Fat that is inside that lining is much more dangerous scientifically for heart disease than overall body fat. And most of the time you hear about BMI, which is your body mass index, or your percentage of body fat, but very few people or doctors ever measure your visceral fat. So that's the one that I thought, yeah, maybe I have a little body fat, but hey, I'm going to be clean as a whistle because I've been an athlete for, 25, 30 years.
His was higher than mine.
Mine tested.
And you were witness to all the terrible things that Deb was eating all this time.
Before I got on the Omron scale that measures this in Dr. Weiss's office, he said to me, he explained what visceral fat was, and he said, in an ideal world, we want this number to be 3 or 4. Now, by the way, I'm a competitive person, so that meant, read to Jason's brain, I must get this to 3 or 4. And I stepped on the scale and it was 11, which is not horrifying, right? But it's not.
However, we typically, a lot of times we have people with 8 or 9 and they're placed on blood pressure pills by the conventional doctors or diabetes medicines.
Yep.
So it is within the range to develop metabolic and cardiovascular diseases.
And as soon as Dr. Weiss explained that, that was one of the really deflating things, that and the lipoprotein A. I walked out of his office, frankly, a little bummed, but determined. And within basically about, I think it was 7 months later, I had gotten it down to 3. And at one point, I actually, and this was actually, we agreed it was a little too low. I got, overcorrected a little bit. It was 2 at its lowest, and now it's 3. So my visceral fat went from 11 to 3. My overall body fat.
Which is, by the way, it's the level of teenagers.
Yeah.
Teenagers, before they go through life and consume too many calories and junk, if you look at a really trim, in shape, like high school athlete, they're 3. Yep.
And my body fat overall went from almost 25%, I want to say. Let me see, I have it right here. No, I'm sorry. It was 21%. And when I measured it, I don't remember what it was in your office the other day, but it was 7.8%.
It was 7, I think, when we measured it.
So it's, and the difference, I have a 6-pack. For the first time in my life at the age of 55. So, if you're vain, this is good stuff too.
Can you tell us about the lipoprotein A? What happened with that? Now, and explain, this is these are your genes that you've inherited from your parents, right?
Lipoprotein A is a genetic marker, and it's one of the things associated with a much higher incidence of sudden cardiac death. I will say, my grandfather on my father's side had a massive heart attack at 70 years old and died. My grandfather on my mother's side had 3 heart attacks, didn't kill him, but he was cardiac disabled towards the end of his life. He would go into heart failure regularly and have to be, pumped up with Lasix to rid himself of fluids and ease back on his workload. And my father had a tremendously high calcium score, so, or still does. With all of those things as backdrops, that was serious. And the science says that you shouldn't be able to move that because it's genetic. Dr. Weiss said, in fact, in experience, you can, and you can move it fairly significantly. And mine went from 134.5 to 99.8. So an over 30% drop.
In 1 year.
So yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. Thank you for sharing those intimate details. Deb,
yes.
Tell us what you feel your greatest achievements are during this year, what you've accomplished and what you're most proud of regarding, why don't you start off first regarding your like test results and or what, physical achievements?
So there have been so many, which is wonderful. It's kind of hard to keep track of all of them. But ultimately, I started about a month after Jason, and kind of reluctantly walked into the office and was like, okay, I guess I'll do this. And I too am competitive. So that was part of my motivation, because if Jason was going to be physically fit and on the inside and the outside, I wanted to be that way too. Plus, we lived together and we farmed together, and there was no way that I was going to let him down, let myself down, let my kids down, and deteriorate, because I'm almost 4 years older than he is, even though I don't look it.
She has almost no gray hair.
Great.
I have the gray hair for both of us.
So I walked in and I got my blood work, and I was a little nervous about it. I'd had some health situations going into this. I had Lyme disease, pretty, some people wouldn't say chronically exists, but I had Lyme disease, and I had situations and flares and things that would bother me. It was clearly inflammatory based stuff. My cholesterol was like 260 something, and which is really high. I'm gonna minimize the expletives here, but really high. And I was probably, I thought maybe, 15 pounds heavier than I should have been. I was 151 pounds, and I'm 5'3.5". I shouldn't have been 151 pounds. I should have been close.
What were you when you were a senior in high school?
Right. Well, when I was a senior in high school, I was a skinny little teeny tiny person, because I was running track, and I was probably 99 pounds in my senior year of high school. And when I met Jason, I was about 105 pounds. So
you were almost 50 pounds. Were your average 50 pounds heavier than you were when you had a visceral fat of 3?
Yeah, well, that's right. I had a visceral fat of 3 in your office, but yeah.
He meant when you were.
Oh, when I was in high school.
You gave away that you already got back there.
Yeah. Oh, gave it away. But
it's okay. We love to hear it again.
Yeah. So my cholesterol was really high. My weight was really high. But I was, Zoftig, right? I was.
But hold it a second. When you say your weight was really high, I don't think you were overweight, were you? Were you actually by body mass index overweight? I'd have to look. Were you maybe by a point?
So I was.
The average American, if the average American, you walk down the street, they would never think you were overweight.
No. But I felt like I was squeezing into my pants like a sausage, So I, my body fat, or when I stepped on the Omron scale for the first time, was 39.9%. So that is almost obese, I think. I don't know what, on the rate of the scale. But anyway, so over the year, my cholesterol has dropped. It's now 177. So 100 points, basically. 90 points lower than it was. My body fat percentage is now 22.8 as opposed to 30.9. I don't have my data like Jason does here, but I will say I started out with a visceral fat 8. So 3 points lower than Mr. Athlete here. And it's now, in our office, it was down to 3. But on our scale, it's 4. So.
Take my scale.
Yeah, he
Take mine.
Okay.
So
Plenty
You must be starving yourself all the time to lose all that weight. Are you hungry all the time?
Yeah, I lost 40.
Do you not you don't eat that much? Do you eat less food now? Tell us about that. Are you eating much less food? You must have gone on like calorie restrictions, you're dieting. How did that happen?
We eat all the time.
And
All the time. Do you eat more volume of food than you did when you were overweight?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't ever think about calories. We eat, we eat sensibly. There are certain foods that are so calorically dense that you can't just eat whatever you want of them. We both have a weakness for whole grain breads since we grow grain and make great homemade breads.
I was praying that you would show up to this interview with one of your loaves so that we could vicariously.
Well, we are going to actually today for lunch after this, we're going to have sourdough with fresh sliced tomatoes on it, probably a little bit of lemon, some of our fresh green beans. And the great thing is, you eat
newly baked carrots.
Yeah, we just pulled them out of the ground this morning. You eat tremendous quantities of food and the food is delicious. So I never felt like I was starving, even during the detox. As a matter of fact, during the detox, I felt like, could I eat less of this stuff instead of, I never felt starved.
I did not ever feel starved either. I will make a point, in addition to what you said, that there's a mindfulness that you need to have, and Wendy and Asha both helped us with that.
Tremendously.
Where you really need to focus on the things that you're putting in your pie hole, so to speak, right? You're not just shoving things into your mouth anymore. You're really thinking about the things that you're eating. Therefore, the pleasure becomes in the flavors, the textures,
and the goodness you're doing for yourself.
And that is the biggest reward.
Yeah.
The biggest
reward. So beautifully said. Don't you think, Wendy?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
nothing to contribute.
Well,
you've contributed plenty.
Asha, do you have any insights into that beautiful statement?
Yeah, no, and I want to touch base a little bit, Deb, what you said, and I'm going to touch, initially you said the foods you liked, right, before you joined into this whole thing, and they were like your, you had these, and it's fascinating. Now, if I asked you that same question, you would be able to kind of differentiate between those two, like the shift that you've made.
Yeah. So Asha, before we started recording this, Asha and Jason and I were talking about some food that we love, and Asha was saying, well, typically this food is fried, and now we eat it steamed. And I said, I really do love fried food. There's something wonderful about it, and just that acknowledgement of the things that I loved, they're still there. I just don't eat them anymore. And the thought of eating them, in my memory is wonderful. But in reality, and now, I couldn't do that to my healthy self. I just couldn't.
And that is very powerful, because what you said right now, you said about earlier, the mindfulness, right? You're mindful. So exactly what you said is, even if that fried food is coming in front of you, you're going to acknowledge you like it. You acknowledge that it was your past food, but you have enough, desire within you to be able to slowly put it down. Because what? Because you respect this amazing body of yours. Yeah.
And so I think in that, there's this well-known saying, and I'm going to just paraphrase it. I'm not sure I can get it exactly verbatim, but what you just said reminds me of this saying, this quote, and it's that people have difficulty changing their habits because they're focusing on loss, what they will lose. Like, you didn't want to lose that, those foods that you had moved here to the farm for. instead of focusing on what you have to gain. And what you have gained is, right, you are Wonder Woman now. You are Superman. You are healing the earth. You feel like a teenager. You wake up you think better. You talk quicker. You dream deeper. You gained all these things, and what you've lost is that momentary pleasure of that stuff that was on your tongue.
Yes, well said. And
Yes.
and I can't overstate. There is a component of a sense of well-being to the way your body feels. And look, I'm a firm believer in mind-body connection. And your body and mind know they are no longer being assaulted. And the sense of well-being that comes over you with that's the biggest reason that I will always live this way. I wake up in the morning and I just feel good. I feel healthy. I don't have the dread of, on my 6-mile run, I'm going to drop dead of a massive heart attack, because that happens sometimes to people. I have the knowledge now that I am tremendously heart healthy, but I think on a level that we cannot be completely sure of how it happens, the body, the doorbell rang.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the body is giving feedback on some subliminal level to you that this is good. I feel good. Keep doing this.
Right? You have liberated me.
Yeah. Like
you have turned me into a healing machine.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
am healing.
It's an amazing gift. And the team at Ethos does it in a way that is holistic, it is thoughtful, it is loving, it is step by step, it is scientific. Look, it ain't perfect, right? We are human, and it's a hard change to make. It doesn't, you don't just wake up one day and say, boom. It will be fraught with things that your journey will have speed bumps.
So Jason, just right here, I should probably ask some speed questions. So if I asked you, what was the hardest thing you ever thought you would never be able to give up in this journey?
Well, I know what that is.
Wine
And then, but we have to have the whole story behind that, because our audience doesn't know
Sure.
this thing.
Well, wine and olive oil, right? Italian born, Italian raised. Olive oil was, I'm not joking when I say very often, a large portion of 3 meals a day. I would have my,
It was mother's milk to you.
It was, you have toast in the morning, you pour olive oil on it, you put some honey on it and some salt. And that was that with a little bit of fresh fruit, that was a lovely breakfast, right? And in my mind, nothing wrong there. I'm not eating cholesterol. I'm not eating fat. So that and wine, right? Like I said, I was a trained sommelier, and Deborah and I were fortunate enough to have traveled all over the world and befriend some of the greatest winemakers on the planet, organic, regenerative winemakers from all over the world who were essentially farmers at a very high level. And we had 6,000 bottles of wine in our cellar. And those were two things I was certain I was never going to give up. They were a part of my life. When the olive oil got released from Tuscany each fall, I was on a mailing list from all the best producers, and we would spend a ton of money making sure that we had the greatest olive oils in our house for the next year. And we were convinced that was healthy. And the same thing with wine, the French paradox. It was like a vitamin. A bottle of wine a day was healthy.
How do you think within 1 year, it's been 1 year since you stopped eating and drinking the olive oil. Mm-hmm. How do you think that has helped you? How has it helped you?
I'm 100% certain it's helped me lose weight. I'm 100% certain, based on the science that I now understand, that it's lowered my cholesterol. And I'm 100% certain that it makes me feel far less sluggish and lethargic after a meal. And that I'm clearly not clogging up my arteries and or making them, less supple and less able to expand under stress, meaning exercise load, than they are now. And I feel all of it. It's very obvious.
But what about, guys, what about the red wine? I thought red wine was healthy. What was wrong with that? What was wrong with drinking wine every night?
Sadly,
calories,
and it causes cancer.
And it's carcinogenic.
And it's far more carcinogenic than we ever knew. Had I known that 20 years ago, I would have stopped drinking then. And I'd like to think, it's funny, we still have a lot of friends, including all of our family, that still drink alcohol. And they are shocked by the fact that we've stopped drinking alcohol. And I've said to them, I would like to believe, if I was alive when the Surgeon General finally pointed out that smoking was actually not healthy but caused cancer, that if I was a smoker, I would immediately stop smoking when I got that news. And that's the news that we got by reading and watching the science. To read and watch that science and then say, well, just because I don't like that, I'm going to keep doing it. That seems really like very risky behavior that I just didn't want to partake in. And so, yeah, I've stopped drinking alcohol, which is shocking to me. Never had a drinking problem. It wasn't like I need a drink. It was just straight up a social beverage. And I thought
I was just going to say, a very common social beverage that is so liberally used.
I even remember when I had to tread a little bit, and I do tread lightly with people because I don't want to, I don't want to push them away or feel as if I'm, directorial to them. I want the patients to come into it on their own. But I remember even when you came in at first, Jason, it was like you were.
Well, I said.
It reminded me of bargaining. It was like you were bargaining, like.
He was.
I was. I said, I'll work with you, but I'm gonna. Yeah. I'm gonna.
Yeah, and well, maybe I will drink. I'll drink instead of 2 glasses. I'll drink 1 glass. I'll drink it like 3 times a week. I'll have it on holiday. I'll have it. You were trying to find ways so that you could still not have that loss. So you didn't lose it.
Also have that. I mean, because it's a very intellectual experience.
Right.
When you're tasting wine, you're not just drinking wine. You're experiencing the terroir. You're experiencing the nuances of the grape growing and the viniculture basically of the processes that go into making wine. So it's not just like taking a shot of tequila. It's
a profound sensory and intellectual and analytic experience.
It is a beautiful beverage that I loved for many years very much. But I don't love anything so much that I'm going to put myself in the grave earlier. And I think that's really what the key thing is. You have to follow the science. And that's what you gave us. And truth be told, I had started to become aware of that science a little bit before I showed up. So that seed had been planted by the journal article in the Lancet a couple of summers ago. And I was ripe for that change. I miss the social aspect of it, and I miss the friendships from it. Remember, many of our best friends we met through wine tasting and through wine groups. Some of them have forgiven us for not drinking anymore, and some have not. It's sad.
So I really want to, if it's okay, I would like the coach to share a few things, because I think it's important from everything that we heard as we wrap up is, what do you think, the coach, what is one of the skills that you thought that made them so successful? What would you say, Wendy?
Jason's determination, first and foremost, and their competitiveness, certainly, but the knowledge that came throughout. And I think, Deb, you touched on this, acknowledging and then experiencing the mourning process of whether it be baked goods or the wine or the relationships that go along with them, acknowledging that and kind of trying to work with it and coming to peace, and then saying, okay, if it doesn't fall the way I would like it to, it's all right. Life will move on. But the work that you guys put into it surpasses all of that. That you were able to just say, I'm not just going to sit back, eat what I want, and take a pill later. You did the work along the way to change yourself so much.
Yes.
Yes.
And if I may, Deb, you gained a lot of muscle mass, which you didn't touch upon.
Yeah.
So you had a great shift. Yeah, you lost a lot of fat, but you increased your muscle mass so much so that you're running again like you used to enjoy and love too. So I just wanted to share that as well with everybody.
Yes, I did. I stopped running for decades, well, about a decade. And it was painful. My neck would hurt, my lower back would hurt, everything would hurt, my knees would hurt. And now, I'm running again. I'm not doing marathons. I'm not even doing 5 miles. I'm, kind of running and walking and running. But just to have that kind of endorphin high again from the running is like just.
We were born to do that, right?
Yeah, I never thought it would happen.
Yep.
Never.
I will say,
never say never.
Just real quick, the amount of physical work that my wife is able to do now compared to a year ago is mind-boggling. It really is. I mean, she is now on the farm. There used to be a bit of a division of labor. The really tough physical stuff was my responsibility, and Deb did more of the cerebral stuff and more of the planning, and this goes here, and then I did. Now it's like, give me the shovel, Jason. Boom. She's fantastic.
As we wrap up, we are going to wrap up.
Yep.
Jason and Deb,
Yes.
just what message can you give to somebody who's listening? What is it, that would be coming from you is more important than Dr. Weiss or the coach, because you guys really did the real deal, is the way people say. So
You go first.
I go first. Okay. I go first. I would say if you're watching this and you've made it all the way through, appreciate you watching this. And I will say it's a hard journey, but it is beyond worthwhile for the benefits that you reap from doing the hard work. But they say nothing in life is easy that is worthwhile doing, right? So during the journey, be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself, understand that it's, you don't have to, in my opinion, we dove in kind of like cold turkey. We really made a change and it was very drastic. I don't know if that's right for everybody. I don't know. I think medically it probably isn't, but at the same time, I can't repeat it enough. This journey is not for the faint of heart, but it does repair your heart. How about that?
well said.
And I am amazed at how I feel, and if you can find motivation in things that like your blood work and your strength and your energy level and your clear-headedness, find motivation where you must, because it's there. Just look for it.
I would just close by saying, if you're on the fence or thinking like we did, that's really radical. I believe it was in the words of Dr. Greg, eating vegetables, eating plants is radical? Question mark. How about having your chest cracked open so that you can have an artery replaced or stents put in. That sounds rapid. And the reality of it is, it's like anything else. You don't finish a marathon by waking up one morning and going out and running 26 miles. You start one day by running a little faster than you did the day before, and then maybe you jog, and maybe you run, and eventually you string together 26 miles. There was a wonderful book that I read called The Non-Marathoner's Guide to Running. And it got me from never running before to finishing a marathon. Ethos is that book for life. It teaches you, and the people there teach you step by step process what you need to do to finish your own life marathon. It won't always be easy. There'll be times you want to stop by the side of the road and stop running, but they will get you to the finish line if you follow their guidance and believe. And that finish line is a wonderful place to live. It's a very healthy, very centered, very joyful place where you stop looking at the mirror and shaking your head and saying, I keep aging. I feel worse today than I did yesterday. And you look and you go, holy cow, I'm 55. And I'll close by saying this. My body age, even at 54, according to the scale, was 41 when I met the Ethos Team. It is now 21. And Deborah and I, from this year forward, on our birthdays, will be celebrating the age that the scale tells us instead of our anatomic age. So thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We're very grateful.
we're grateful.
Not as
Absolutely.
grateful as we.